If you will please stand and join us for the invocation and the pledge. Invocation will be led by Commissioner Walker and the pledge by Commissioner Davis.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Fill us with your grace and continue to remind us that all we do here this evening is for the glory of you and the service of our community. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome. A call to order the July 13th Planning Commission meeting. Director Selman, will you please announce the meeting's procedures?
Thank you. For some reason, we're still encouraging you to wear a mask while indoors and to observe 6-foot social distancing. Please speak clearly into the microphone so that everyone can hear. And that goes for us up here as well as those who speak at the lectern. When your name is called, please come to the podium. Address comments to Planning Commission, not to the audience. Any questions you ask will be answered once everyone who has signed up has spoken. We understand that you may have strong feelings one way or another. Out of courtesy, unless it is your turn to speak, please remain silent. Please refrain from applauding, cheering, booing, or other verbal outbursts. This is a fact-finding hearing. There is no need to repeat what has already been said. If a previous speaker stated points that you wish to make, you may simply acknowledge that so that the hearing may proceed. The applicant will have 5 minutes to speak. Other speakers each will have 3 minutes. Please respect the time limit. Madam Chair?
Thank you very much, Director. Mr. Starter, at this time, will you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Ramick?
Here.
Sharma? Erickson? Stafford?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
Gerke?
Here.
Greenway? Lamont?
Here.
Davis?
Here.
Walker?
Here.
Bow?
Here.
Hobby?
Present, thank you. May I have a motion and a second for the approval of last month's minutes, meeting minutes? All in favor?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second for approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much.
All in favor?
Oh, and all in favor?
Aye.
The next on our agenda is the consent agenda. The first matter of business is, the first matter of business is the consent agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Madam Chairman, I would like to move that we remove item number 2 from the consent agenda and move it to new business.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, at this time, we'll move the item number 2 to the new business. So we'll start with the first matter is the consent agenda, moving item number 2 to new business. May I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Director Selman, will you please present the consent agenda?
Thank you. Item number 1 is conditional use 23086. This is at approximately 312 Spring Street, a conditional use application to construct a 3-story apartment building with 24 units. The applicant is Mr. Aaron Burrows, P.E. with Atoka, representing property owner DNS Realty Group, LLC. They're seeking conditional use and large-scale development site plan approval to construct a 3-story apartment building with 24 units. The subject property is at approximately 312 Spring Street. It is Zone C1, Central Business District, has a future land use classification of linear commercial corridor, and is located in Board of Directors District Number 1. The recommendation is for approval with conditions, and I will read those conditions into the record. The development site shall be developed and constructed in strict accordance with the approved site and development plan, including but not limited to location of buildings, access drive, parking, and landscaping. Number 2, all construction and construction activity are to be accomplished in strict accordance with all applicable approval conditions and with the minimum standards, codes, rules, and regulations and policies as may now or hereafter be required or enacted by the City of Hot Springs, the State of Arkansas, and/or the United States of America, including the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, whether or not submitted for staff review or Planning Commission approval. Number 3, required permits and/or approval shall be in hand for the City of Hot Springs utility departments prior to any work beginning. Number 4, all exterior lighting, if any, shall be fully downcast, fully shielded, and shall contain all illumination on the subject property. Number 5, the inside measurements of the dumpster pad enclosure gate when it is open must be 12 feet. Number 6, the fire department requires certain things, A through G, which I will read. A, fire sprinkler system connection as shown on the plan. B, the fire department connection shall be within 100 feet of a fire hydrant. C, the lowest level of the 3rd floor is 20 feet above grade, so a standpipe system is required. D, 100 PSI is required at the top of the standpipe without use of a fire engine. E, Type 5 construction can be used since the building has a fire sprinkler system. F, no burning is allowed if the property needs clearing. G, fire alarm system is required and is required to be tied to the fire sprinkler system for occupant notification. Condition number 7, these are engineering requirements. A through E. A, provide truncated dome detail on a detail page. B, on the site plan, demonstrate the stabilization method for the slope along the west property line where the wall was removed. Any finished grade over 25% shall be stabilized with retaining wall, cribbing, terraces, landscape fabric, vegetation, or riprap. C, on a detail sheet for the sidewalk, show reinforcement. A number 4 bar or 10 gauge 6x6 inch wire mesh is typical. D, on a drainage or site plan, demonstrate or note how and where the roof drain will drain. And E, handicap ramp area should be lengthened. Currently, users are led to the concrete flare at the front or rear of the vehicle. Paint hatching to the rear of the parking space will allow for rear loading and unloading and an access aisle from the driver's side of the vehicle to the lengthened access area. And condition number 8, approved large-scale development site plan application shall be effective for 1 year from the date of Planning Commission approval. Prior to its expiration date, the Director of Planning and Development may extend the original site plan approval for up to 2 one-year periods upon the applicant's written request. Planning Commission approval of any project that has not fully secured all required permits within the period set forth shall be null and void. This approval will be effective until July 13, 2024. Item number 3 is wireless communication facility 23-067 at Jonquil Place and Comp Street. This is a new monopole tower. And recommendation is to approve the application with the following conditions of modifications: to construct a 69-foot wireless communication facility monopole tower with a 4-foot lightning rod with compound located at the southeast corner of the Jonquil Place and Comp Street intersection as submitted because it demonstrates compliance with Hot Springs Code's requirements for such requests. Number 1, to mitigate adverse impact on surrounding residential properties prior to issuance of a building permit, a tricolor stealth design color scheme shall be submitted to and approved by the Hot Springs Planning Department. Number 2, to mitigate adverse impact on surrounding residential properties, all exterior illumination, if any, shall be fully shielded and downcast to retain all illumination on the subject property. And number 3, prior to issuance of a building permit, the plan shall be revised to show the following. A, driveways must be hard surfaced through the right-of-way, and this needs to be shown on the plans. B, provide detail for the concrete drive. C, provide pad details and footing details for the tower. And D, provide utility details such as how does power reach the site. That concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you very much, Director Selman. Please just note that this is to approve the consent agenda with moving item number 2 to new business. Mr. Stoddard, will you please call the roll for a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Stafford.
Approve.
Scott.
Approve.
Gerke.
Approve.
Lamont.
Approved.
Davis.
Approved.
Walker.
Approve.
Bowell.
Approve.
Ramick.
Approve.
Hobby.
Approved. Thank you very much. The next item on tonight's agenda is new business. Director Selman, will you please introduce the next item?
Thank you. The next item will be what was item number 2, and that is conditional use 23089 at 2207 Malvern Avenue, a conditional use request to operate a doggy daycare facility with overnight boarding in the existing commercial building located at 2207 Malvern Avenue.
Thank you very much. A motion to approve merely just gets the matter on the floor for discussion. A motion and a second does not mean that you're necessarily in favor of this application. May I have a motion and a second to approve this item?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Director Selman, will you please present the staff report on item number 2?
Thank you. This application is by Tamara Slamek, and this is an application to operate a doggy daycare called Camp Arkansas at 2207 Malvern Avenue. The specific request is for a full-service doggy daycare and boarding facility. The subject property is in the Malvern Avenue overlay, is Zone C3, Office Neighborhood Commercial District, is indicated as Neighborhood Commercial Center in the future land use plan, and is in Board District number 4. Majority of surrounding properties are commercial to the south, east, and west, with single-family residential on the north side. This is approximately 0.87 acres and was the former location of the Lawn Doctor business. We have a detailed site plan demonstrating a 5,000 square foot facility with parking. The proposed construction of an 1,100 square feet fenced-in turfed area will allow for some outdoor activities. Outdoor activities would be limited to between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. The proposed goal is to accommodate 50 dogs on average. 6-foot opaque wood fence separates the subject from the residential use on the north boundary. This is a fully developed lot other than the 1,100 square foot facility that would be added. And It is located on Malvern Avenue, a major roadway and principal arterial street with existing sidewalk. The plan proposes no change to the existing driveway and parking lot, which provides ingress and egress, off-street parking, loading, and pedestrian ways intended to be efficient and safe. The hours of operation would be Monday through Friday from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Hours of outdoor activities will be limited to between 8 and 5 p.m. and accommodating, again, around 50 dogs on average. The finding is that a kennel is an applicable conditional use in the C3 district per Hot Springs Code, Section 16-152, Table of Permitted Uses. Existing landscaping and screening meet code requirements. The applicant's development plan demonstrates compliance with conditions to Hot Springs Code, Section 16-72. The recommendation is approval of the application to operate a doggy daycare, Camp Arkansas, with the following conditions, because with those conditions, the application can satisfactorily demonstrate that all requirements for approval have been met. Number 1, all construction and construction activity are to be accomplished in strict accordance with all applicable approval conditions and with the minimum standards, codes, rules and regulations, and policies as may now or hereafter be required or enacted by the City of Hot Springs, the State of Arkansas, and/or the United States of America, including the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, whether or not submitted for staff review or Planning Commission approval. Number 2, the development site shall be constructed and developed in strict accordance with the approved site and development plan and with Malvern Avenue overlay design standards, including but not limited to location of buildings, drives, parking, and landscaping. Number 3, separate permit applications shall be made by the applicant to Hot Springs Engineering Department, and permits shall be in hand for stormwater, drainage, and sidewalks as may be required prior to any work beginning. Number 4, no employees shall sleep overnight at the facility. Number 5, there is conflicting information between the narrative and the plan in regard to the use of the drain cap. This is a comment from the city engineer. The cap must be used as follows: to prevent runoff or rainwater from entering the sanitary sewer, the drain cap must be in place at all times unless actively washing animals, where the cleaning solutions and potential waste needs to be collected within said drain. Number 6, no development signs are being reviewed or permitted as part of this conditional use review. A separate sign permit application, review, approval, and permit shall be required prior to installation of any signs on this site. Number 7, all exterior lighting shall be fully downcast and full cutoff and shall contain all illumination on the subject property. Lighting shall be positioned so as not to create a nuisance to any adjacent properties. Number 8, this use and activity shall not impose any undue hardship or nuisance upon the nearby neighborhood. And number 9, the applicant has an affirmative responsibility to demonstrate ongoing compliance with the conditions of this approval. Violation of any of these conditions so imposed shall constitute grounds for revocation or modification of this conditional use permit by Planning Commission per Hot Springs Code, Section 16-279. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Director Selman. Has anybody signed up on this particular item? Thank you. At this time, if the applicant would like to please come forward, give your name, your address, speak very clearly into the microphone, and you have 5 minutes to add anything you would like.
Okay. So my name is Tamara Islamic. I live at 406 Restful Ridge Road in Hot Springs. And this is our first go around at something like this, so bear with me. We have attended the previous meetings, and I have had conversations with some of you that are present here tonight to make sure that we address everything that was listed as a potential issue. With that said, there were a couple of items that were listed while you were reading through it. I do want to say that we understand what the requirement is as far as bringing everything up to code and make sure that our plan is being completely followed. The drainage, I do want to mention that it was a pain point for us here previously, but we have figured out a solution, and we do understand that the drain cup will be on there unless there are chemicals that are being used to rinse off that area. I don't know if you have any questions for me. We did visit with a neighbor. There are only 2 homes that really would be in any way, shape, or form directly maybe in some way impacted, which we're not planning on them having to hear anything or see anything. One of the neighbors was very excited. They themselves take their puppies right now to the other doggy daycare, and said that they're wanting to see something like that on that side of town. So we're happy to be able to bring that there. We have friends that live in a country club as well. They're excited. So we have heard nothing but positive from everywhere we have taken this to. The other neighbor, we couldn't reach her. She was absent in our attempts to visit with her. The neighbor we did speak with said that she's not there full time. So unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to talk with her. In our conversation with the neighbor we did speak, we addressed that nothing will be done on that side of the building. Our outside area where the dogs will be able to go outside to do whatever they need to will be on the opposite end. And while the operating hours are from 8 to 5, you know that during the summer you cannot leave the dogs out for more than 20 minutes at a time. So we're not concerned that we will be disturbing the neighbors. Actually, our plan is to introduce silent style of doggy daycare to the city, but I can't promise that by their dogs. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I believe that everything that was listed as an issue by you, we have found a solution for. I would invite you to ask any questions. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say, but that's all that I have. We are excited.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I'd just like to quickly ask, as far as the mitigation for the barking noise, can you just explain what's being done to ensure that that won't be a problem for the neighbors?
Yes, sir. So the neighbor that we spoke with did not express that, but the barking itself, the building isn't closed. It will always be closed in. And again, it is a doggy daycare, so there will be some noise, but there will be nothing done on the side of the building that borders the residential properties. And then our full intention is to develop more of a silent doggy daycare, which would mean that dogs are also trained while they're in our care, so that way they know when it's proper time for them to use their inside and outside voices. I'm not standing here promising complete silence during the day or when dogs get excited, but we will be monitoring that. And of course, from looking at the building where it's located, and the way that we have made the plans for it, the neighbors would not ever be exposed directly to any kind of bark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if I missed it, but there's not going to be any dogs that are going to be staying overnight.
There will be overnight boarding.
Okay.
Correct. But during the overnight process, there are ways to keep the dog silenced too, with the low music playing. And we're not going to have any employees sleeping there overnight, but we will have people that attend to those dogs. And again, we are going to be training them that when they're staying, they're at their best behavior. For us to run a successful doggy daycare, we have to be very selective with type of dogs that we choose. So anybody that goes in there and it's not a good doggy daycare dog will not be a repeat customer of ours. And that may sound harsh because there's no bad dog, but there is a bad dog for a doggy daycare. We're not going to leave dogs overnight that have not been previously tested in our facility. So we will need to know the dog first and know that they're not going to be a problem child.
How do you monitor it when there's nobody there?
There are sensors. My plan is to have somebody monitor, right? But there are also noise sensors that a lot of people, if you look at Airbnb forums, use that will notify you when something goes over a certain limit. And we can respond to that if nobody's there. But the plan is to have somebody there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So there won't, as a doggy daycare person, I had an English bulldog who spent all day, I taught, so doggy daycare was his school as well. So, and then he also spent the night, but the doggy daycare he went to had someone that spent the night.
Mhm.
So, I do understand noise and dogs barking. So that, I don't have an issue with that. But the issue that when you said that y'all were gonna, you can't, I also taught school, you can't just eliminate noise.
Right.
Doggy daycare.
So
I mean,
it wouldn't be, I'm talking about barking. I'm not
I know.
Right.
Barking is noise.
Yes.
So it won't be completely eliminated. I mean, there will be some barking.
There
I
will.
just don't want to set you up for failure.
Right. No, I'm not saying that the dogs will never bark. Our intention is to make sure that, again, we accept the best type of doggy daycare dogs that we can find and that we accommodate during that. Again, when you have a dog in your care, and there's a lot of podcasts and schools and courses that we have signed up for so far that teach you how to handle that. My dog currently goes to Camp Happy Tails in Benton because I can't get him anywhere else locally. And he is not a barking dog, and I have spoke with them as well, and they can, even that doggy daycare center the owner can tell you how that works when you have a dog who will come in and cause problems for everybody, and when you have dogs who are just in harmony. Dogs are pack animals, and they understand how everything works. So when you have them in the same room, really and truly, what you should see at any doggy daycare that has let's say a full-time dog there, you should see them all come in together in the morning and then let them play for a solid 20 minutes or so, and then teach them to be comfortable in peace. And so that is our intention. I can't promise there will be no bark, but even the neighbor, the residential home, she has 3 big dogs, and they're probably going to be more barking than our dogs will.
So this is the outsider looking in. You said you had noise sensors. I'm assuming that they'll be on 24/7.
Absolutely.
So at all times, you probably have that sensor system that has some type of tracking that you can refer back to.
Absolutely. And that's just for the dogs and the neighbors, but also for us, because if there's ever an issue where somebody says, hey, last night they barked until 3 a.m., I can say, hey, I have, these monitors that tell me that that is actually not correct. So it's just planning.
Okay.
How many employees will you have?
It depends. We're going to probably have more part-time employees than anything else, but I have my family here with me. They're going to be doing some heavy lifting too. We're thinking we would start easily. I know the plan says on average we would run about 50 dogs. I think that's a comfortable number to be at. But when it comes to employees, we would start smaller, of course, and we wouldn't go straight from 0 to 50 dogs. We would have to introduce those dogs slowly. So at the beginning, I'm thinking besides my family, we would have probably 3 to 4 employees, and then add as needed and as we grow.
Can you tell us about your background? Do you have briefly, and do you have an experience running a business like this?
So I currently work with Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. I manage $280 million in revenue. I'm a digital operations manager over Arkansas and Tennessee. So when it comes to commercial planning, strategy, all of that, I'm really set. Before that, I did property management with Krylike in Little Rock, and then property management with Moses Tucker. So I'm very familiar with with the with the codes, with the expectations, and I have been in a management role of one way or another for a long time. I had managed a lot of employees, and then also was in charge in a lot of projects. So far, what we've done was successful. We also have a short-term rental property on the lake that we manage ourselves.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any other questions
I
for
have
the
I have
applicant?
a couple of questions.
Okay,
Then,
yes, sir.
you talk about an average of 50 dogs, then do you have a maximum number, maximum capacity?
Absolutely. So when we did all of the research, we learned how many numbers per how many people and how many dogs, just a lot of numbers, right? I don't think that we would want to go over 75 dogs ever, and that would have to be a completely, I would have to believe that we are completely fully trained, staffed, and able to accommodate the number of dogs. There would be no less than one person for 15 dogs at a time.
And how many dogs can you keep overnight in your overnight kennel area at the back of the building?
So again, with that, we're going to start small. I think we're going to have 10 kennels just so we have them. And see how it starts. We do have room, and in our plans, we are able to add kennels as we go, but at the beginning, we just want to start small and see how that works out.
And the maximum there would be,
I'm sorry?
and the maximum would potentially, in the area that you've shown?
So it depends on suites, right? Kennels can have suites or just be smaller kennels. We would just play that by ear. We wouldn't be able to accommodate more than 20, I would think, overnight. Just because of the room in a warehouse space.
So, one other issue is animal waste, and again, maybe staff would like to clarify that the issue with the drain cap for the sanitary sewer is that more of a capacity issue or a sanitary issue?
It is to prevent water infiltration into the sanitary sewer system.
Like stormwater?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the city has had problems with capacity
Mhm.
during some of the high rain events. Okay, so, but again, then just how do you handle what is your plan to handle the waste? How does that normally done?
Right. So on the outside part, I'm assuming is what you're addressing, because that's the only drainage we had to make a plan for in addition to what's pre-existing. Right now, that is already a parking lot, so any rain that falls on it drains naturally and goes wherever it needs to go. The drainage we're talking to add would be capped, and it would only be opened when the chemicals are used. We have talked to Mr. Dennis, and he had helped us develop the plan for that. And I believe we have submitted everything that was necessary to get that going. Yes.
As shown on the
Mhm.
chart there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
And there would be a licensed plumber that would help us to do that, of
okay,
course.
no, I understand that. And how do you handle the animal waste, then indoors and outdoors?
Okay.
50, 70 dogs is a lot.
Yes. So they're going to be, of course, pooper scoopers, right? We will have to pick up the solid waste and sanitize that as it happens. The little surface, you grab a little spray bottle and mop it up. After you pick it up, the pee spray bottle, you wipe it off, and then we would have to disinfect the areas as needed. Some doggy daycare centers do it every night, some do it every other day. It just depends on the need of it. On the inside, the surface is all concrete with the drains already in a floor. So we're going to add the hair traps to those drains and then clean them however we need to. On the outside, the turfed area will have, again, that drainage that you can spray down and disinfect as needed. And when it's raining, there will be no dogs there anyway. So
And it ultimately goes in the trash dumpster.
yes, the waste, but it will all be bagged, and the bags will be tied. So just like at home, if you pick up after a doggy poo-poo.
That's
Any
all.
other
Thank you.
questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. The public portion of this item is closed at this time. Commissioners, we're free to talk amongst ourselves. Oh,
Did you want to mention the?
Yes, I do not see a copy of that. Thank you very much. Now I do. We did have A letter from a neighbor, Janet McCullough, at 114 Lamont Street, who listed some concerns. She says they share a property line. While she is not necessarily opposed, she's very concerned in the case of a doggy daycare, and she is not convinced this is an area best suited for a dog daycare. Her concerns are barking noise, day as well as night, the hours that the dogs are outside, and that would be 8 to 5, outside kennel proximity to residents, disposal of waste and drainage system, location of the city dumpster, odor and contents, and assurance of enforcement of noise ordinances. And that is Ms. McCullough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Okay, well, at this time, just to clarify, this is a motion to approve item number 2 that has been moved to the new business. Mr. Stoddard, will you please call the roll?
And that would be with staff recommendation and
Yes, staff
conditions.
recommendations and conditions, yes.
Scott,
Approve.
Gerke,
Approve.
Lamont,
Approve.
Davis,
Approved.
Walker,
Approve.
Val,
Approve?
Ramick,
Approve.
Stafford,
Approve.
Hobby.
Approved, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right, the next item is item number 4. Director Selman, will you please introduce the item?
Thank you. Item number 4 is RZ 23084, a zone change application request to go from R1 Rural Residential District to M1 Light Manufacturing District for property approximately 222 Davidson Drive.
Okay. All right, a motion to approve merely just gets this item on the floor for discussion. A motion and a second does not necessarily mean that you're in favor of this application. May I have a motion and a second to approve this item?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Director Selman, will you please present the staff report on item number 4?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The applicant and property owner is Karen Lloyd. She's requesting M1 light manufacturing zoning for approximately 2.34 acres of land at 222 Davidson Drive. Subject property is currently zoned R1, rural residential, has a future land use plan map classification of residential suburban, and is in Board of Directors District Number 4. This property is unplatted, again, just under 2.5 acres, with approximately 180 feet of frontage on Davidson Drive. The surrounding property zoning is as follows. To the north, M1 light manufacturing. To the east is unincorporated Garland County without zoning. To the south, M1 light manufacturing, and to the west, R1 rural residential. Surrounding land uses are as follows. North, storage units. East, Davidson Drive and single-family residential. To the south, City of Hot Springs Parks and Maintenance Facility, compost facilities, animal services, and the wastewater treatment plant. To the west is undeveloped timberland. There are mandatory findings for a request to change zoning. The applicant submitted a narrative in support of this zoning request, which lists the standard compatible with surrounding zoning. The applicant states the request is compatible with surrounding zoning, and there are significant acreages of M1 zoning in the immediate vicinity of this property. These facts enable Planning Commission to find that the requested zoning change demonstrates compatibility with surrounding development and zoning as required by Hot Springs Code Section 16-11E. If the change to M1 is approved, the full range of M1 uses would be possible. The recommendation is for approval, and to recommend that the Board of Directors adopt an ordinance to amend the zoning map by designating the subject property M1 Light Manufacturing, because you have made a finding that the change demonstrates compatibility with surrounding development and zoning, and that is consistent with the objectives of Hot Springs Code 16211E. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody signed up? Thank you very much. At this time, applicant may come forward. Name, address, speak very clearly into the microphone, and just if there's anything you would like to add.
My name's Karen Lloyd, and my address is 1252 Shady Grove Road, which is around the corner from the property. And I didn't really have anything to add, except that I think that it's beneficial for that area, and I plan to build a warehouse, which I'll have professionally drawn, and then I'm sure I'll bring that back for approval.
Okay.
And do you have any questions for me?
Commissioners, any questions for the applicant at this time?
No questions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, public portion is closed on this item. Amongst ourselves, do we have any questions, concerns, comments that we'd like to discuss?
No.
All right. Just to be clear, this is a motion to approve item number 4. Therefore, Mr. Starter, will you please call the roll?
Gerke,
Approved.
Lamont,
Approved.
Davis,
Approved.
Walker,
Approve.
Val,
Approve?
Ramick,
Approve.
Stafford,
Approve?
Scott,
Approve.
Hobby.
Approved. Thank you very much. Next item of new business is our annual elections.
Item number 5.
No.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Item number 5, I missed you. I apologize. The next item on tonight's agenda is item number 5. Director Selwyn, will you please introduce item number 5?
Thank you. Item number 5 is conditional use 23093 at 110 Violet Street. A request for reasonable accommodation to approve an A-frame carport after the fact for reasonable physical improvement that cannot be constructed to conform to the city's setbacks or design standards.
All right. Again, a motion to approve merely just gets this matter on the floor for discussion. A motion and a second does not mean that you necessarily agree with or in favor of this application. May I have a motion and a second for approval of this item.
So moved.
Second.
Director Sullivan, will you please present the staff report on item number 5?
Yes, thank you very much. Angela and Patrick Schuler reside at 107 Violet Street. A carport was constructed across the street from the home at 110 Violet Street, a commercially zoned lot containing only a garage that was built in 2002. The carport encroaches into the entire required front yard setback, as well as appears to occupy about 2 feet of city right-of-way without permission. This is a referral to Planning Commission from the Planning Director and is to be handled as a conditional use permit as prescribed by Hot Springs Code. A citizen complaint caused Planning and Development Department to inspect 110 Violet Street. Zoning Inspector Robin Wise visited the site on March 7th of 2023. At that time, Inspector Wise determined that there had been no site plan approval by the Planning Department, no building permit approved for the placement, that the carport as built encroaches into public right-of-way, and the carport does not meet the 25-foot setback required in the C2 zone district. And Inspector Wise's notes were included in full in the staff report. Following multiple conversations about whether the unpermitted carport could remain across the street at the garage, Patrick Schuler told Inspector Wise of his wife Angela's mobility difficulty. As soon as Mr. Schuler mentioned disability, Inspector Wise made him aware of Hot Springs Code's provision for reasonable accommodation and she explained what documentation would be required for such a request. She assisted him in preparing his application. The application states Angela has become unable to drive due to a medical condition following a lengthy hospital stay in September. Now requiring the use of a wheelchair and/or walker, getting Angela in and out of the car has become very difficult, especially during inclement weather. With the parking space at 109 Violet Street being only 9 feet wide, we had a car cover carport installed at our 110 Violet address. Now I can help Angela across the street using an umbrella and then help her in or out of the car with plenty of room. The application provided a letter from Ms. Schuler's neurologist which states she was having problems getting in and out of her house due to having to use a walker. The doctor's letter fails to detail how a carport across the street from the house is beneficial to Ms. Schuler's ability to access her house. Hot Springs Code 16.210.2, subsections 4 and subsection B states, in order to make specific housing available to an individual with a disability, a disabled person or representative may request reasonable accommodation relating to the various land use, zoning, or rules, policies, practices, and/or procedures of the city. The code grants the planning director authority to consider and take action on requests for reasonable accommodation. A written determination shall be issued within 15 days of receipt of a completed application. Angela Schuler's application was received on June 1st, 2023. The planning director, according to the code, may approve, deny, approve with conditions, or forward the request to Planning Commission for consideration as a conditional use permit and subject to the findings stated in 16.210.2 subsection 4 subsection F, required findings for reasonable accommodation. Planning Director Selman responded by letter on June 12th, informing the applicant that she was forwarding the request to Planning Commission's July 13, 2023 meeting. There are required findings according to Hot Springs Code in making a determination regarding the reasonableness of a requested reasonable accommodation. And the approving authority, and that is Planning Commission, must make the following findings. Number 1, the housing which is the subject of the request for reasonable accommodation will be used for an individual protected under the Fair Housing Act. The subject of the request, 110 Violet Street, is a carport and is not housing. The applicant resides across the street. Reasonable accommodation does not apply. Number 2, the request for reasonable accommodation is necessary to make specific housing available to an individual protected under the Fair Housing Act. The applicant occupies a home at 107 Violet Street. No modification to 107 Violet is sought. Number 3, the requested reasonable accommodation does not impose an undue financial or administrative burden on the city and does not fundamentally alter city zoning, development standards, policies, or procedures. The applicant requests after-the-fact approval for a carport across Violet Street, built without permits or inspections, attached to a garage, extending into a required 25-foot setback, and probably occupying city right-of-way. Hot Springs Code Section 16.210.2, subsection 4, subsection B states that the purpose of reasonable accommodation is to make specific housing available to an individual with a disability. The applicant occupies 107 Violet Street. The request is off-site at 110, a commercial lot where the applicant does not reside. The applicant's request fundamentally alters city zoning by adding a garage on a commercially zoned lot without permits, by occupying a required setback, by failing to provide adequate separation between the carport roof and a pre-existing power line that serves an adjacent property, and possibly by unlawfully occupying city right-of-way. Had a permit been sought prior to construction, the permit could not have been issued. Number 4, the requested accommodation will not result in a fundamental alteration in the nature of the city zoning process, as fundamental alteration is defined in fair housing laws and interpretive case law. The request would fundamentally alter the nature of the city's zoning because the reasonable accommodation is sought not for the applicant's residence, but for an accessory structure too large to fit on the lot across the street. The applicant otherwise occupies a home at 107 Violet Street without apparent need for reasonable accommodation there. The doctor's statement fails to specify how a carport at a pre-existing garage, both across and down the street from the applicant's home, makes available the applicant's housing. Number 5, the requested accommodation will not, under the specific facts of the case, result in a direct threat to the health or safety of other individuals or substantial physical damage to the property of others. The subject carport at 110 Violet currently violates an electrical code mandate to provide specific separation of a structure from power lines in addition to the conditions detailed in number 3 above. The findings for reasonable accommodation are not met by conditional use application CU 2393. The recommendation to Planning Commission is to not approve conditional use 23093, a request for reasonable accommodation at 110 Violet Street, because the requirements of Hot Springs Code are not met, and also to order the carport to be removed within 90 days. Alternatively, should Planning Commission find that the requirements of Hot Springs Code for reasonable accommodation are met, then the following conditions should be imposed. Number 1, at the Schuler's expense, electrical service to the neighbor's property shall be relocated to the mutual satisfaction of those neighbors and of Entergy to comply with adopted electrical code requirements within 30 days. And number 2, the Schulers shall obtain specific approval to occupy city right-of-way, shall obtain building, electrical, and other necessary permits, the cost of which shall reflect their after-the-fact status, and shall obtain inspections and comply with applicable adopted codes. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Director. At this time, may the applicant come forward and state your name, your address, speak very clearly into the microphone, and if you would like to add anything, you have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Basically, this is the same information.
Yes.
Name and address?
Need your
Oh,
name and your address.
Patrick Schuler, 107 Violet, Hot Springs.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, this is going to be basically what you reviewed, and what it is, my narrative is, to whom it may concern. Angela has been unable to drive due to a medical condition following a lengthy hospital stay in September, now requiring the use of a wheelchair and or getting a walker to get her in and out of the car has become very difficult, especially during inclement weather. With the parking space at 107 Violet only being 9 feet wide, we had a car cover / carport installed at our 110 Violet address. Now I can help Angela cross the street using an umbrella and then help her in and out of the car with plenty of room. Thank you for your help and consideration with this matter. And also, the letter to the neurosurgeon wrote for Angela may not be described as exactly as needed. However, he did indicate the carport is beneficial for her recovery and ease of getting around with ample space. as our home driveway was not adequate space to get in and out of the vehicle safely in inclement weather as well. I'll be willing to pay for bringing electric up to code, plus all permits paid and inspections as needed. We really don't know how long this will last with Angela's health, so we really do need this to stay, and I'm pleading my case on granting the above. Thank you for your consideration. And also, the 110 is exactly across the street, so it is a straight path from our driveway to the carport. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant at this time?
I would like to understand, I've seen your site and it appears that your front porch is elevated and there are stairs on that. I'm not sure what happens in the back, but would you describe how you get her then in a wheelchair or from inside the house down to street
She
level
can
and across?
Yes, sir. She can come out the front door. It's straight flush with the porch. But when we come to the steps, she has to use her walker to get down the steps. And I have enough room where I can get her across the street at a straight path and get her where I can open the doors up the car where she can get in and out easily with ample space. So the steps, we are in the process of trying to build a ramp to do a little bit more easement over there at this point. But that's basically how it is set up over there, sir.
So you never drive the car across the street?
Ma'am, it stays over there, and then that way that if it's in bad weather, I can take her over there with an umbrella and
No,
get her.
but so you never just drive the car across the street to your house?
No, ma'am, unless she's not going anywhere.
Well, I too went by your house, but since the car is across the street, wouldn't it be better to drive the car to in front of your house?
Well, that would be true too, but the problem is that the street is one-way street and it's so busy with traffic.
Oh,
That's the problem. So that's why we try to do that, or get her out of the way.
Just a quick point of clarification. This
Yes, sir.
This may have been stated, and so apologize. But you own both of these properties?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Like I said, this all happened so fast, you know. We will be planning on taking care of everything we need as shown.
When was the carport installed?
Sir, it was March 6th.
Of 2023?
Yes, sir.
I think the point I'm missing, the carport is in front of a garage. Is that garage usable to put the car in there, or is there something I'm missing about not putting the car in the garage?
There's historical vehicles in there, sir, and we have some antique furniture that was in a family trust when her mother and father passed away.
When you had the carport installed, did the installer mention to you that permits were required?
Sir, I did ask that question, and they did indicate that a carport did not need a permit. And then when I spoke to Mrs. Wise, when she came over, she realized that there was a permit needed because of the actual size of it. So I was unaware, and he was unaware, the seller, that it was because of the size difference on whether a permit would be needed to issue or not. So.
Is she
And-
permanently disabled?
No, sir. No, sir. At least not at this point.
Commissioners, any other questions you have for this applicant?
Yes, may I ask a question of the director? What are the alternatives if this, I mean, you mentioned in stating the case that there may be an alternative to approving this, and then you went through those conditions. How do we achieve that in terms of process, if that's?
You would amend the motion.
Okay.
the motion now is to deny, correct?
Correct. The motion
The motion is to approve
approve.
with the staff
Find- yeah.
recommendation and findings. If you approve it, okay, if you approve it, you would be approving it with the two alternative conditions. If you do not wish to approve it, then you need to vote no on the motion. You have now a motion to approve, which would be with the two conditions.
Yes, as soon as once the commissioners are finished, then we'll call those who have signed up. So, and it says on here, well, I guess it says in order for the carport to be removed, it needs to be done within 90 days. So, Director, within the 90 days, the recommendations 1 and 2 would have to be.
If, and this is complicated,
Yes.
if the vote is not to approve, then everything needs to be removed within 90 days.
Gotcha.
Right. If you vote to approve it, I would recommend that as you vote, you indicate that the two conditions of the staff report should apply.
Commissioners, any other questions for our applicant at this time?
No.
Okay.
Just one clarify the point then. If we approve this, then that structure can remain there indefinitely.
Unless you approve it otherwise. You may condition a
Could be a
time.
condition,
You could.
which is speculative in terms of understanding what her future health recovery might be. You can give us some insight.
Yes, sir. We're hoping that, every day is a different story, so we're just hoping that she will improve over the period of time. But that's something that we just don't know at this point.
Yeah, I
Okay.
understand.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
At this time, we do have some.
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. At this time.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Over here, this way,
Oh,
LaDonte.
I'm sorry.
May I ask one question to the director? In the findings, about the applicant requests fundamentally alters the city's, if approved, will the city, fix that part? Or by us approving, would we be setting a precedent where?
You are never setting a precedent. You
No.
do not have to worry about setting a precedent.
Okay.
Any case that you decide with a conditional use is site-specific and fact-specific.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend the conditions.
At this time, we still have people signed up to speak
Yeah, let's
on
see if
this
others
item.
Yeah,
so
okay.
let's hold, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Like I said, we do have a couple signed up. Jean Miller, if you would come forward, state your name and your address.
I brought handouts, and unfortunately, I didn't bring enough, so everybody has
We,
to share.
okay, Miss, we need
Just
to
have
go
Mr.
ahead.
Stouder.
You have to give it to Ms.
Hey.
sorry. I'm the large circle, and they're the
Yeah.
smaller one.
Yes, and if you just state your name, your address, speak clearly into the microphone, and you have 3 minutes.
All right.
For your presentation.
And I'm Jean Miller. I live at 805 Quapaw, which is on the corner, so I have a good piece of Violet Street also. Now, these are my observations. Y'all covered a lot of it. But the garages is auto repair business. And the carport is, we've observed, is being used for it. This is in the historic area. His wife, until I don't know, what's happened to her health, but ran a retail business on their front porch. And there were customers there day and night. With all due respect, he has not been a good neighbor. He has auto haulers bringing automobiles, large, that have blocked the street. They literally, I sat one time for 8 minutes while one was loading cars. That was before his carport was placed there, into that space. He used to store cars in that area. Now he has a carport for them. And
it's a one-way street. It does not have a lot of traffic, but it comes from Ouachita and West Grand, and that intersection is, you know, when you can't go up the street because a car hauler is blocking the street. It makes for a very dangerous traffic situation. Also, the planning notification sign, I have it on my phone, fell down, wasn't put back up. So anyway, that wasn't up the whole time. And I'm not going to go into all the other details. Y'all have covered it thoroughly, but I don't think this is good for the neighborhood at all. And I don't understand why somebody would just put up a large unsightly carport and say, oops, didn't know I wasn't supposed to get permission. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Brooks Clem. Again, if you'll state your name and your address, speak
Brooks
clearly
Clem.
into the microphone, and you have 3 minutes for your
Brooks Clem.
presentation.
I live at 112 Fern, but I own the property also at 112 Violet, which is right next door to this. That picture that's on the screen right there really would be taken probably from the driveway of my property, okay? So, you know, I probably was the one that reported this. I don't know if anybody beat me to it or not, but I've never seen no setback. And I've done quite a bit of property work and development, things like that in Hot Springs. My initial thought was he didn't get a permit. And I believe Mr. Schuler is a city employee, so I couldn't imagine him being unaware that, you know, if you're doing something in the city, we have plenty of rules to abide by, and permit is something that you need to do. But that side view that you looked at a minute ago there, that completely blocks anybody that's pulling out right there. That completely blocks anybody that's pulling out of my driveway if you're backing out onto Violet. And if you know Violet, it's a one-way street. It's a busy street because it goes from Grand to Prospect and Quapaw. And if it's okay, could I show you a picture? Standing there? Sure. Okay. This is taken through the window of my truck. And that's basically when you're getting ready to try to pull out onto Violet Street to back out, to go up the one way where you need to go, that's what you see. And if that's not a danger, I don't know what is. I just, again, when I saw that, like I said, I'd never seen no setback. I know you can't do that. So it is not fitting with the historic nature of the neighborhood. And I was very curious on this situation here, why there should have been a permit fee. It looks like it was waived. And I couldn't figure out if that was right or not.
There was no permit, therefore no waiver of a fee.
I think he's referring to the conditional use application fee.
That is per code because of the reasonable accommodation ordinance.
Okay. So, I mean, somebody could put up what is basically an illegal structure, cause our department to do a lot of due diligence and a lot of work for free.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all. I just ask you that please vote with the recommendation of your planning department. Appreciate y'all. I know it's not an easy job you have there, but thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, the public portion of this item is closed. Commissioners, amongst ourselves, this is where we get to really clarify, I think, what everybody's asking. So, if I'm reading this correctly,
Madam Chairman, is it,
Yes, ma'am. Could I please clarify Mrs. Miller's comments about?
again, you can only direct your statements towards us here and on the Planning Commission, not to the audience.
I just want to let you guys know that the vehicles that she was talking about, there's a house next to mine. It is at 108 Violet. They're the ones that have all the
Well-
stuff in their yards.
Well, thank you very much,
Okay.
but that address is not even up for discussion tonight.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna let you know, those weren't my vehicles and the car haulers and all
Okay.
that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Okay. Yes, at this time, the public portion is closed, and I think we just need to kind of look back and make sure that we are all on the same page. This, if we go to call a motion and to approve, we're approving with staff findings and recommendations, and that is to not approve. the requests for reasonable accommodations. If we choose to go a different direction, then we would have to do an amendment. But if we do not approve, if we approve with staff findings, it's 90 days within today that the structure will have to be moved.
And staff findings is that it be taken down in 90 days,
Staff findings and recommendation is to not approve.
not approved, and it be taken down in 90 days.
But when we go to call a roll, it is to approve with staff findings and recommendations, which is to not approve.
If I could, maybe, I don't think this will help, but I'm going to do it anyway. If you vote no, the findings support a no vote. If you vote yes, you will need to say, this structure is essential to Ms. Schuler being able to occupy her home at 107 Violet Street. That is what is required under the reasonable accommodation section of the zoning code.
But the structure is at 110,
That is so.
Correct.
so that is not an accommodation for her if she lives across the street.
Again, we're not looking at the individual people. We are really looking at the parcel of land. And we're looking at what codes go with those parcels of land.
It is, to respond to Commissioner Davis, the requirement is for an approval under this section of the code that it be essential for the applicant in order to occupy the home, which is, as you point out, at a different address.
I'm just clarifying, you've got a city attorney opinion on this specifically. It
He
sounds
has reviewed
logical,
this.
and I think it's
Yes, he has.
important to put that in the record.
Yes.
Commissioner Stafford, I thought you had a question earlier. I just,
It's been addressed as
Okay.
we discussed things, so, yeah.
any other comments? Okay, so again,
Let me ask one thing. I'm not certain there is any value to tabling this that would give him time to look at other alternatives, or, okay, and you've considered that, thank you. And I know Martin and I just went through some of the video conference last night, and we try to have motions so that we vote in the affirmative, and so I want to clarify, you're saying to vote yes, then we would have to say, yes, we're voting on the alternative conditions. If we vote no, then it has to come down.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's correct.
okay. At this time, we'll have Mr. Starter call the roll, and it is a motion to approve with the recommendations of the planning department to approve. Mr. Starter, please call the roll.
A motion to approve. Lamond,
No.
Davis,
No,
Walker,
No.
Val,
No?
Ramick,
No?
Stafford,
No.
Scott,
No.
Gerke,
No.
Hobby.
No, thank you very much.
Would you like me to summarize? This item has failed, and the Planning Commission's decision includes that the structure must be removed within 90 days. So we'll call that October 13th.
Also, we might need to note that for Ms. Lloyd's property, that's going to the Board of Directors for the rezone.
Yes, it is, and it will be going on,
Tuesday.
I don't have my calendar. Anyone have a calendar? You have a calendar.
I always,
Which meeting?
Off, as it should be.
So
It'll be
anytime,
the first Tuesday of August.
so anytime there's a rezone, we as the planning commission are recommending that to the board of directors for approval for that. But it will still have to go to the board of directors, which will be the first Tuesday in August.
August 1st.
That'd be August 1st. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. At this time, we'll go ahead and we're headed to the director's report.
Yes, and the
Elections.
election.
Yeah. Oh, was that, I didn't know if that went under if that
Nope.
went on number 6.
Nope,
Darn,
that's
I
all
keep
you,
trying
Madam
to-
Chairman.
All right, the next item on the agenda
Railroad.
is item number 6. Director Selman, please. Please tell us.
Actually, the director's report tonight is brought to you by Rick Stouter.
Woo! Please step forward.
Are we not,
Please
are we
step
gonna,
forward.
are we gonna do elections
Are you
before we
skipping
do
the-
director's
Is the
report?
election not the next item?
Yeah.
Number 6, yeah.
Item number 6.
Okay, we need to do elections and then the director's report.
Okay. The election, we need, would you like me to handle this?
Yeah.
Since I'm obviously doing that. We need a motion and second for nominee for chair.
I nominate Carrie.
I'll say okay.
Second.
Second, third.
Okay, other nomination?
Who seconded it?
Sorry. Oh,
Well, you don't know. Did someone
Any
second it?
other nominations for chair?
I move election by acclamation.
There you go.
Second.
I'm honored to be this person, so I do kind of like it. So I'm not gonna disagree with it.
That's great. Congratulations. And we now need a motion and second for, what do we call it, vice chair?
Vice Chair.
Yes.
I nominate Rick.
Let's go with Bart.
Okay,
Do we have 2 nominations?
do we have two?
We probably need a second on the first nomination.
All right. Second on the first nomination of Rick?
I second.
Okay, that sounds like a second. And for Bart?
Second.
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 Okay. Do we have other nominations? Okay. Are either one of you not interested in this honor?
I would just say that Mr. Ringick has done such a good job in being a vice chair that I would be very happy to step aside, even though I'm honored to be nominated.
All right. Who did the second on Bart?
You are
Yeah.
stepping aside.
Okay, and you accept this?
There's the nominee.
You,
There's a nominee as well as the second. I'm okay. with
yes, yes, okay. All right then.
Thank you.
A motion to vote?
Yeah,
To
a motion
close
to-
nominations?
Yeah, to close.
So
Yeah, make a
moved.
motion that we vote on the nominations that have been made.
I second.
Second.
Okay. Let's do it. We accepted Carrie by acclamation. And now we have Rick. A vote for Mr. Remick on vice chair. There doesn't seem to be any controversy here, so
Yeah.
Aye.
By acclamation.
congratulations are in order. All right.
It's Rick and I. We're ride and die right here.
What leadership?
It's amazing. Okay, now the chairman's report, or director's report.
Directors.
Rick Stouter has a very lengthy report on everything you ever wanted to know.
Well, not sure about that, but I'll give it my best shot. So, 3 items to report tonight. Number 1 is the housing strategy. Immediately following the July 25th agenda meeting, the Hot Springs Board of Directors will hold a work session during which Russell Archambault, principal with RKG Associates, will present a final report, including findings and recommendations towards the housing strategy for the city. The agenda meeting will start at 4 p.m. here in the board chambers and will be broadcast on the city's YouTube channel. I believe several commissioners attended the first presentation that he gave to the board.
What was that date? I missed it.
The date of the first one or the one that's coming up? July 25?
Okay.
Yeah, July 25th is where he's going to present the final findings to the board. And that would be immediately following their agenda meeting at 4 PM. And planning commissioners are encouraged to attend that.
Yep. It'll be very enjoyable. Hope to see you there.
Second item is a Code Forward update. Our consulting team, Camiros, will be adding some additional content to the project website. That's going to include videos, a survey. We're trying to encourage more people to get engaged with the process. If you haven't visited the website, we do encourage you to do so. There's not a whole lot of content on there now, but as I'm reporting, we are working on that at this time. It's www.codeforwardhs.com. That would take you straight to that Code Forward project website. And third, but not least, a historic district update. I think I'd mentioned to y'all maybe at an agenda meeting a month or so ago regarding the application to do total renovations to the Medical Arts Building downtown to convert that into a 99-room Aloft by Marriott Hotel. That was reviewed by the Historic District Commission and was unanimously approved for certificate of appropriateness. So at their leisure, they can now pursue obtaining building permits to get started on that project, and everybody's very excited about that. So that concludes the items for the director's report.
Awesome. With no further
Madam Chairman,
business.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All right.